Hey everyone, welcome to it's the third episode already, yeah? The third episode of the Career Lab. So each week we are going to be debunking common career myths and we'll be putting the career challenges under the microscope. So we'll provide you strategies to land your next job, as well as take greater control over your career in general. And today we're going to talk about these dreaded CVs and resumes. So we will discuss the role of the CV, whether it's a show of information or call to action. Who is your audience? Who's going to read your CV, and what are their pains and concerns? We'll talk about important stuff and redundant stuff, keywords, transferable skills, and this, again, dreaded ATS, yeah, applicants tracking system. So shall I say applicants terrorizing systems, so terrifying or terminating systems. So I'm Olga Barrett. I'm a career coach specializing in career transformation and personal branding. And here's my partner in crime and brother in arms, Jonathan Maltby.
Hi, everybody. Yep, I'm Jonathan Maltby, for those of you who haven't met me, and I'm a career strategist. What I love to do is I love to help people figure out what makes them awesome and valuable, and then package that up into a strong personal brand with a really compelling brand message. And part of this is working with people to help them consciously and strategically create the careers that they want. And I call it like a career by design, because so many times we kind of drift in our careers going from job to job without really finding that sense of purpose and fulfillment. And what I help people do is consciously and strategically do that. So today, as Olga said, we're going to be looking at CVs, and we're going to lead you through some of the major sections. We're going to teach you how to write them and how to avoid the most common mistakes that land your CV up in the rejection pile. And as both of us have come from recruitment backgrounds, and you can imagine that we've all seen the good, the bad, and the darn right ugly. And as I said earlier on, if you joined us right at the beginning, during that kind of chit chat, CVs are like art, and like art, everybody's a critic. And so one person could look at a CV and go, hey, what a fantastic CV. And another person could look at it just like art and go, what is this piece of rubbish? So what we're trying to do today is kind of teach you best practice, okay? But also to make your CV kind of as objective as possible and remove some of that bias that people can put into a CV as well. So let's start off by looking at what a CV actually is. And to break it down, your CV is the verbal representation of your personal brand, in other words. And I want you to think of your CV as like your own personal sales brochure. It's the professional story of you. And it's there to essentially sell you. It's your sales document, as I said, but also convince the reader that you're the right person for the job. It's like an invitation, in other words, for a company to engage your expertise and experience. And I want you to think a little bit here, who here feels that their CV right now is maybe falling short of telling their true professional story and selling themselves. And as I said, your CV is your sales brochure, and sales brochures aren't modest. Sales brochures aren't shy in demonstrating how great a product or service is. No, and you want to think about the same thing for yourself. This is no time to be modest and shy. This is a time to amplify what makes you good, okay? So before you actually start delving into your CV, you need to actually think about, what is it that I am exactly selling? Because if you fail to understand what you are selling, you will either confuse your audience, it might be too vague, or worse, you may be underselling yourselves. Okay, so the first third of a page to the first half of the page is really what I call your sweet spot on your CV. That's where recruiters are actually going to spend the most time figuring out what you are. Can I just get some people, there's a little bit of feedback coming through. Can I just get everyone to put themselves on mute? That'll be great. Awesome, thanks. Cool. All right, let's go into this. Cool. So the first section that we're going to talk about today as part of the, and Olga and I are going to kind of tag team between this. The first section is we're going to talk about the about section, or your personal summary section. And this is probably one of the most difficult sections to write, because it's getting you ready to think about yourself and go introspectively and going, what am I as a professional? So why do we struggle to answer this key first section, the about section, or the professional summary section? And the major reason is we often lack what we call professional identity. In other words, we aren't really clear and sure on what makes us great and how we can sell that. And this is why it's essential, as I said at the beginning, that we understand what it is that we are bringing to the table before we present ourselves. So when it comes to this section, the reader, when they read this part of the CV, they really want to know, okay, what are you? In other words, I want to be able to wrap my head around you as quick and as painless as possible. Don't make me think. Deliver yourself on a plate, in other words. So I want to know what you are. I want to know what you do exactly, okay? I want to know how much experience you've had. I want to know what your key areas of expertise are, or what you could be regarded as a specialist in. But at the end of the day, when I read this section, I want to know, hey, where do you fit in relation to the job that I am currently recruiting for, or within the organization? So how do you go about answering it? Well, you need to have some key elements that you want to hit them really hard with, right between the eyes. And it starts off by telling people what you are. And I call this your professional label. So you want to start your CV with something like, I am a. And that's quite important, because it's really kind of framing you. And people like to work with things that they can easily put into a category. If we can't put something into a category, we don't know what it is, we don't know how to use it, and its value diminishes. So you want to be in command of your own category here. And it could be simple, like saying, I am a senior management professional, or I am a digital marketing specialist, or I am a finance and banking specialist, or whatever that is. Make it clear what you are, starting from the beginning. The next thing you want to think about as part of this narrative that you're going to be telling here is, what problems do you solve for companies? And this is how you communicate your value. Now, here's one of the key things that when it comes to job applications that you want to be putting in your CV. Almost all job seekers position themselves as one thing: an applicant for a job. They're saying, here is me on a plate. I am an applicant, please give me a job. Now, if you do that, you're just going to be blend in with everybody else. What you want to think about is, what problems do organizations have that I can help them solve? And instead of putting yourself up as another applicant, instead position yourself as the solution to those problems. That's what you want to be doing. How can I solve a company's problems? I am the solution. I am more than a job applicant. And that's how you demonstrate your value. Other things that you want to talk about as part of the I am a sentence is how long you've been doing it. I'm a senior management professional with 25 years under my belt, for example. So that's a good idea to tell them how long you've been doing it. Now, sometimes if you're worried that there may be a bit of ageism creeping up there, you don't want to say maybe I am, 30, 40 years experience. If you're worried about that, maybe just say 15 plus years experience, or 20 plus years experience. So you don't have to give them the exact number if you're just a little bit worried about that ageism. Okay. Another thing that you want to talk about in this section is where your greatest depth of skill and experience lies. Okay. So whilst you've got a whole breadth of experience and expertise, where does your area of specialization lie? Where do you have the greatest depth? Because you want to be talking about yourself as that solution to a problem, but also a specialist who solves those problems. Because you don't really want to be positioning yourself as a generalist, because then you're a little bit of this and you're a little bit of that, and people find it hard to put you in that box. Another thing to think about for this particular section is, what areas or categories do my greatest achievements fit in? Okay, where have I made an organization better? And that's what you want to think as part of that specialization. How do I make businesses better? What part do I play? What is my function? And what is my skill and expertise in helping businesses resolve those key crucial problems that prevent them from being successful? Now, when it comes to the format of this particular section, I find in terms of attention span that roughly 2 paragraphs, 4 to 6 lines each is probably enough. Less than that, you might not be conveying enough, and more of that, you might lose people's attention. So I find the sweet spot is around about 2 paragraphs, 4 to 6 lines. And when it comes to putting this together, you also want to use keywords. Think about, how would I go about finding myself if my CV was on the internet? You know, what words would I put into the search engine to find me? So that's why you want to use the language and the keywords of your industry. Okay, the language of the jobs, in other words. Now, I don't believe in a one-size-fits-all CV, the spray and pray kind of methodology. I think that a good CV is often tailored to the role. And that means doing that in your skills section, but also in your about section too. And one of the easiest ways to do this, and I'm going to talk about this a bit later, is to use the right language. In other words, use the language of that job. So if you look through the job description, for example, pick out some of the key phrases and then start putting them or sprinkling them around in that about section. So when the recruiter or the hiring manager goes, right, I'm looking for these things here. You're using similar language. I can see alignment, okay? It's a little bit of a trick and a hack that you can use. Also, when it comes to the section, write like you talk. We're very lucky in Australia where we kind of have a bit more of a laid back approach to how we do CVs. We still keep it professional, but we don't have to demonstrate how amazing our command of the English languages. And this is what I find a lot of people do. They try and make them sound super intelligent by using massive words, great sentences that don't do anything for your brand other than tell people, hey, I've got good command of the English language. Still keep this section professional, but you really want to kind of talk about, just like you would talk normally, okay? Write like you talk. This makes you more accessible, okay? Now, this section is prime real estate. Every sentence must count. No time for fluff, okay? A lot of people have heard me kind of talking about the concept of the duck. So think about it this way. Let's say that the job represents a duck. In order to be a duck, you need to walk and talk and sound like a duck. And that's what you want to be doing in this part. If the job says, I need this, be that. Be what the job needs you to be. Don't diverge too much and say, hey, but I've also got this and this and this and this. As I said, that means the other person reading a CV has to think. You don't want them to think. Okay, don't let them use their imagination by filling in the blanks as well. All right. Another quick thing that I want to talk about is what I call the fast food phrases or fast food skills. And Olga's going to talk about this a lot more, but when I was reading a lot of CVs as a recruiter, I would see a lot of the same overused cliches used time and time again. Now, these words were great about 20 years ago because they were cool buzzwords, but they're very hollow. They're empty words now, and they don't do anything to enhance your CV. Now, I'm willing to bet that there's people sitting on this call right now that may have used some of these words in their CVs and in their LinkedIns and maybe in interviews as well. And if you want to blend in, you definitely want to use these words, but you definitely don't want to blend in, do you? You want to stick out like a sore thumb. You want to hit them hard. So to do that, you got to get rid of these words. Are you ready for them? Okay. These are the most overused, cliched words. I am a problem solver. Ladies and gents, everybody sitting here can solve problems. There's nothing special. All right. If you're hungry, you eat, solve that problem. Shoelaces untied, tie that sucker up. You can solve that problem. If you're going to tell people that you're a problem solver, you need to be absolutely specific about which problems you can solve. Another one that I see often is, hey, I've got a can-do attitude. Whoop-de-doo. That's great. Good on you. Well done. Can-do doesn't mean to say I will do it. It just means I can do it if I want to do it. I can work in a team, or I promise not to run away. I can also work autonomously. I've got great communication skills is another one that I see. I can manage my time. I can prioritize. I am results focused. Another great overused cliched word. If you're going to call yourself results focused, tell people what results you can produce for them. Be specific. And those results are usually tied to the problems that you can fix. Okay. Another one that I see is I'm dynamic. Great. I can think outside the box. Oh my gosh. The amount of people that told me that they could think outside the box in their CV, and when I brought them in for an interview, could not demonstrate a single out of the box concept was astounding. If you're going to talk about being outside of the box, make sure that you can back yourself up. And you know what? Not everybody has to think outside the box. It's okay to just think inside the box. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Another one is multitasking. So what you end up with is kind of a personal summaries that says, I am let's say I'm a problem solver with a can-do attitude. I have the ability to work in a team and autonomously. With my out-of-the-box thinking, I am exceptional at multitasking, time management, and the ability to prioritize. Oh my gosh, the amount of stuff that I saw like this does nothing. And it's like, I looked at that CV, I'm not even going to look any further than that. That's going straight into the rejection pile. All right. So when it comes to this, avoid using the fast food skills. And I know what you're going to think. Hey, isn't some of these things in the job description? Yeah, they are. You can wrap all of this into one statement, but I would avoid it because you want to stick out for something different. All right. Cool. That's me for the time being. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to flick over to Olga, and Olga's really going to talk about the next crucial section in your CV, which is your skills and strengths section. All right. Take it away.
Hey, Jonathan, thank you so much. It was I really enjoyed it. Okay, skill section. And before we dive in this topic, I want to ask you all, do you like Quentin Tarantino movies? I know they're a little bit gory, sometimes a bit cynical, a bit too violent, but some of them are really amazing. And I want to talk about Pulp Fiction, very old movie. And particularly one character in this movie, Mr. Wolf, who was known for being able to solve any problem. So when main characters found themselves in a house with a bloody corpse on their hands, very Tarantino style, of course, that they had to get rid of because the wife of the owner of the house was supposed to come back in 2 hours, they called Mr. Wolf because Mr. Wolf could solve any problem. So now, Mr. Wolf had an absolutely enviable personal professional brand. And many of my clients who just came to a country or who've been in the same job for a while and didn't put much effort into networking and personal branding, they tell me, before that, actually, I didn't even have to look for a job because jobs were finding me because I was famous on the market for being able to do something, but not anymore. And summary of skills is something that you need to be known for, right? So now let's talk about the audience. Who's gonna read this summary of skills? Who are these people? Do we want to shower them with information? Do we want to overwhelm them? Or do we want them to convince them to pick up this phone or to write an email and to get you an interview? Yeah. So some job seekers, they tend not to look too much into these, different people involved in the hiring process. In the best case scenario, they say, oh yeah, I deal with recruiters or agency and the company. But who are these people in the company? And the truth is that there are different people involved in the decision-making process when it comes to hiring. And these different people, they have different roles in the business and they have different pains and concerns. And you have to specify these concerns. So, and I'm talking about recruiters, hiring managers, business managers, subject matter experts, cross-functional teams. So how are we going to help them specify the concerns with your CV, with your summary of skills? So recruiters need help in selling you. They need to know that you can, that you know your selling points, that you can accentuate the selling points. Hiring managers and business managers want to know that you can do your job and can produce results and you understand the impact. Subject matter experts want to talk the same language with you. They want to be sure that you use the same or similar toolkit. And cross-functional teams, they need to know that you're able to work with them, that you understand and appreciate what they do, but you're not gonna, tell them how to do the job. So the summary of skills in your CV is a tool that actually help to pacify these people's concerns. And it literally should say, hey, relax, I'm almost in the house. I'm going to do my job, play a role in particular business processes, use tools you use and like, methodologies, technologies, get results like this while interacting with different functions or external stakeholders. So when you analyze the job ads and pick what you did, whether exactly the same or something similar or something that you're able to do, you have to articulate the following things in your summary: business processes, your role, tools, interactions, impact, knowledge, skills, abilities. You can quantify where you can. People love numbers. And it can be years of experience, number of projects or programs that you've done, percentage, revenue, net profit, gross profit, KPI, etc. So all in all, this summary of skills is your elevator pitch. When done well, it can be an immense help for passing interviews with flying colors, because ideally your resume is a good script for an interview. For example, the about section answers the question, tell us about yourself. Yeah, and the summary of skills, it can be widely used. It potentially can respond to at least 4 interview questions. Yeah, tell us about your strengths. Very straightforward. The question, why you're interested in this job? Because from what I read in the job ad and from my experience, I believe I can do it well, as I have all necessary skills and knowledge and experience. Bridging technique, such as, first of all, second, next, and finally. Another question, what do you think is important for this role? Again, you can refer to what's important, in the framing it as your skills and your pitch. Yeah, so utterly important. Now, let's talk about transferable skills. Yeah, or these fast food skills, as Jonathan said. One important point I want to make is that transferable skills, they are important, but they are not the keywords that recruiters use. And I swear to God, I've been working in recruitment for 20 years, and never a recruiter put in a database or in LinkedIn search field, go-getter or straight-sitter or can-doer, yeah, or communication skills. Let's say, imagine that you decided to buy a vacuum cleaner. Yeah. So what will be the words that you will use into search in Google? Yeah. What you're searching for product on Google. Most probably you will use some functional technical specifications and characteristics. Yeah. Maybe a particular brand. Yeah. So will you use words like reliable, super powerful, efficient, top of the range when you are looking for a product? Most probably not. Because let's be honest, these words, they don't help to differentiate one product from another. In other words, every marketing person calls a product super powerful, super efficient, super reliable, etc., regardless of what these products are really. So, as I said, no recruiter in the history of recruitment ever based their search on the words like motivated, enthusiastic, team player, communication skills. So, because they are not differentiating factors. However, transferable skills are very important in CV. And as Jonathan said, you need to be specific. You need to bring examples that relate to your job, that are applicable to your job. So it's not enough to write superb communication skills. We all have communication skills. Let's say technical support analyst and salesperson and the counselor. These 3 people use their communication skills, and these skills are utterly important for, for success, for them doing the job. But they use the skills in different manner. Technical support analysts use their communication skills to listen to non-technical people, explain technical matters without sounding condescending. Yeah, salesperson needs to be super convincing when they're using their communication skills. And finally, counselor basically it's more of listening skills rather than communication skills. So my point is, all in all, don't use cliches. Cliches are redundant. Pick a few crucial, transferable, or soft skills that are very important for your job, and bring examples. Yeah, so that's it. Jonathan, your turn.
Thanks very much. I just want to just add something there. I found a great hack that you can actually use. If you do get a bit of writer's block and you're figuring, man, I'm really struggling. I kind of know what my transferable skills are. That's great. But what about my really hardcore technical skills that I need for this role or that? And I found a great hack, and the work's already been done for you. Simply put, what you can do is jump on one of the job boards, and they don't even have to be the local job boards. You're only going to use this for research. So let's say that you're a business analyst, for example, and you want to figure out, I'm getting a bit of block. I want to figure out what my business analyst skills are. Why don't you go and find 7 to 8 job adverts? And they can be anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. You're not necessarily going to apply for them. What you are going to do is you're going to use them for research. So go and have a look at the key selection criteria, okay, for those 7 to 8 jobs. All right. Then what you want to do is you want to open up a Word document or something like that. Okay. Have a blank Word document. Go through each of those jobs and go and pick out the skills that you've got. You go, oh, I've got that skill. That's what they're asking for, and copy and paste it into your Word document. Keep going. Then go to the next job. Oh, I've got that one. Now, sometimes you will have skills that sound similar from one job advert to another. Merge the two together, grab that language and put it together to make one good one. What you're going to end up with probably maybe 15, 20 good, solid skills. That's going to help you get over that writer's block. And the cool thing is you're talking the language that you need to be talking. The recruiter or hiring manager has already done the work for you. If you sound like that duck that I was talking about, you're going to get a much better chance of having your CV going, yep, I'm going to need to give this person a call. So when it comes to looking for a job, once you've got what I call that master skills list, once you're looking for that job, go and have a look at that, what that job requires, and go, which ones have I got that correspond? And you go, oh, that one corresponds, that one corresponds, that one corresponds. But you do want to, what I call, massage the language of those 20 skills so it doesn't sound like you've copied and pasted it from a job advert, okay? Just maybe make it tone it down a little bit. All right, now talking about language, I want to talk about, how important language is in your CV. Because as I say, language is the great connector. Now, if you are looking to make a career change, maybe you've come to the point in your career where you're going, you know what, I want to try something different. I haven't done this before, but I believe I'd be good at it. And I've got enough, as Olga said, transferable skills that I think will really help me. Especially if you're wanting to get into a new industry, what you want to do is you need to rebrand yourself. You cannot go in with the same brand that you've been using, okay? You're not going to sound the part. So what you want to do is you want to sound like someone who is already doing the job that you want. And you got to think, what language would they use? What jargon would they pin? What industry speak would they use to describe themselves? And how can I apply that to me? And the best way to do this, as I said, is be what that industry needs you to be. In other words, be the shape, the right shape. So if you're looking at a job, okay, and you go, I'm going to look at the key selection criteria of this job. What I need to do, let's say that this metaphorically forms a square, for example. Excuse me. A square. Let's say this job represents a square. I need to be a square so I can fit into this job. And the way to do that is to use the right language, the language of that job. And that means going back to those job descriptions and looking at that, as well as your skills section. So you may look at a job description and go, okay, I've done that. I just did it in a different industry and it's slightly called a different thing, but it's technically the same thing. Don't describe it in the language of where you've come from. Describe it in the language of how they need it to be, so that when they look at the CV and go, right, well, this person has done exactly what we're looking for. Okay. So you want to sound like someone who has already made that transition. All right. And as I said, go do that research. Go and look at how they talk about that. What else can I say? That also, when you go through, Olga's going to talk a little bit more about this in a moment, about how to set out your career history and how to talk about that. But one of the things you can do is go and look at your career, your roles, and go, what language do I need to describe my role in that is in alignment to the job that I want to be in? So maybe if they're using specific jargon, you need to put that jargon into and inject that into the way you describe what you have done. As I said, remember, language is the big connector, okay? Now, Olga's going to take over for a moment and she's going to talk about how to basically set out your career history section.
Hey, CV is not a job description. I can't emphasize it enough. CV is not a job description. What's more, a job ad should not be a job description, but that's a talk for another time. So how often when you read the job ad, you find yourself sometimes wincing because the ad actually doesn't say anything about the scope of the job, the challenges of the job, the expected results. So basically the job ad tells you what you already know. Yeah. So like we don't need to tell data analysts that they will have to analyze data, right? So, and the same goes to your resume when you work on the description of your responsibilities. So there are three important points I want to make. First, whatever you mentioned in the summary of skills section, and I'm talking about skills, knowledge, abilities, tool, technology, interaction, or impact, they have to be reflected in the description of what you did for a particular specific employer. So it will be understandable, it will be transparent and clear how the summary of skills actually appeared, yeah, and how you use these skills, knowledge, and abilities in a certain context, yeah. Next, every line in the description would have that you put need to respond or should respond to the following questions: and what happened, and how, and why, and whether other people involved. Did you use any tools or resources, and how did it help? Yeah. So how often did you do it? For whom did you do it? And the final point: responsibilities versus outcomes versus achievements. Quite often people are a little bit confused about what is what. Yeah. So for example, I'm going to bring an example of responsibility in the job description or job ad, responsibility with outcome, and responsibility with outcome and achievement. So job ad, the successful applicant should be able to get information from different sources and write reports for senior stakeholders. Here we go. Responsibility with outcome: gathered information from vendors and sales reports and wrote a 30-page financial management report for CFO that helped to make viable business decisions. And responsibility with outcome and achievement: gathered information from vendors and sales reports within a week, and within a week produced a 30-page financial management report for a CFO that helped to make viable business decisions and increase net profit by 8%, which was $200,000 in brackets. So you see the difference. Yeah. So how did you write this report? How did you gather information? From whom you gathered information? Ideally, well, we can also mention how we processed this information, but for whom it was and what happened after. Yeah. So recruiter would not be interested in reading that you just wrote a report for someone. Yeah. They want to understand how and why and how fast and with what impact you did something. And you cannot quantify everything. And that's okay. Sometimes we don't remember exact outcomes. Sometimes this outcome is not measurable. Yeah. Sometimes we cannot say something because we are under non-disclosure agreement, for example. Yeah. But we can talk about impact. We can talk about results. That brings me to the achievement part. Many times I see in CVs when people actually put their responsibilities as an achievement, because in their mind, that in their context, that they know it was an achievement, but it's not an achievement for someone who's reading it because they don't know the context. And there is a certain difference between your responsibility, what you did, and an achievement. So let's say you're a project manager who completed the project within the timeline and the budget. That's not an achievement. That's an outcome. Yeah, you did it. There's nothing like super cool about it other than you did what you were supposed to do. But if you're a project manager and the half of your team was kidnapped by aliens, and meanwhile the vendor changed the platform, but you still managed to do the job and complete the project within timeline and the budget, then kudos to you. That's an achievement. So all in all, I'm sure everybody knows about this wonderful Marie Kondo, you know, this woman who helps people declutter. So principle is it's quite simple. Yeah, you take the whatever that belongs to you and you think whether does it spark joy in me or not. My suggestion when you do decluttering in your CV, you have to look at each and every line in your CV and think, okay, first of all, does it provide any unique information about me? Unique information, your name, phone number, name of the employer, the I don't know, degree or certificate or dates. This is unique information. And the second criterion would be whether this line helps to convince a decision maker that I can solve the problem. Yeah. So make sure that each and every line in your CV whether provides unique information about you or sparks joy in decision makers. And now, Jonathan gonna talk a little bit about formatting and design. Yeah, another pain point in CV writing.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I just want to talk about one other thing very quickly, is that with a CV, it is also a perception management tool as well. Not only is it your sales brochure, but you're also kind of trying to craft that perception that you want people to have of you. And as Olga says, that's about choosing the right statements. And I think a good CV is the carefully curated story of you. It's not your whole entire professional story, because that might just confuse anyone. It's taking the strategic parts and going, I want this job. I need to have strategic alignment. So I'm going to pick the things that not only spark joy, but that are actually relevant and are aligned. So this is the curated story of you. Okay, so let's talk about formatting and the design of your CV. I'm here to tell you today that most recruiters don't read CVs. No, they don't. We scan them instead. And I was a bit slow. I usually only took about 6 to 10 seconds to scan a CV. But I know there's other recruiters that could do it much quicker than that. And I know that sounds like a bit of a shock and a horror, but what we're trying to do when we look for a CV is we're scanning it left to right, just like anyone would scan a newspaper article or anything on a screen or anything like that. Left to right. I'm looking for do you sound the part? Are you using the right words that are aligned to what I'm looking for? Okay. If I can see that, then I will go back and do a second read and a proper, more detailed read. But if I can't see those key things jumping out at me in those keywords in those 6 to 10 seconds, you're going to go into the rejection pile. I'm not even going to go back and read it again because I've got 100 other CVs that I need to get through in the next half hour as well. So you want to make your CV as easy to read as possible for a recruiter going left to right. Now, there are some fantastic looking templates out there that you can download. And my God, do they look amazing. Whiz, bang, icons, color, boom, boom, boom. Looks fantastic. From a functional perspective, they're crap. Okay, because it breaks up the left to right reading, especially if you've got a format that you've got a box over there and a box over there and a little bit more information there, and then I've got to flick over and you're trying to fit all of that great information about you into a design. Okay. You don't want to break up that reader's train of thought by having too many design features. Don't make them work hard to understand who and what you are. Okay. I remember seeing great CVs and it was fantastic. I would go through a pile and find one CV that sticks out and go, oh my gosh, this is breaking the monotony of all the black and white CVs. They've used some color. Oh, and then I start reading and going, oh, it looks good, but I'm having to divert my attention to so many different places. It's too busy. Sorry, I have to work. It's gone. Okay. So Whilst a fancy design may make your CV look good, be careful of using too many creative features. They also don't really do well in the application tracking system. And Olga's going to talk about that a little bit more, but it makes it hard to read from left to right. And I know when I used to do CV audits for people and look at them and go, why did you not put this in your CV? This is crucial information. And what they would say was, I wanted to, but I couldn't fit it into the design. And I'm like, what? You're missing out on telling the best parts of your story because you couldn't fit it into the design that makes you look good. I don't care if you look good. I want to know the information. Okay. So when it comes to this, you want to have, I reckon, a maximum of, say, 2 fonts. One font for the headings and one font for everything else. Okay. Another thing is, people often ask me, Jonathan, should I put my photo in my CV? I say absolutely not. And the reason is because, and we spoke about this last week in last week's episode about bias. When you want your CV to be taken at face value, you want your CV to be read as objectionably as possible. And the minute you put a photo in there, it goes from objective to subjective. Okay, people could look at your photo and go, oh, this person's got a brown hair, but I have a preference for blondes. Or, this person doesn't wear glasses, and I like people who wear glasses. It's all these kind of subconscious biases that are coming in. So you want to remove your photo. That's what the LinkedIn is there for. But your CV doesn't have to be boring, okay? You can put a bit of color in there as well. Sometimes when I do CVs for people, when I used to, instead of using black text, I would use a dark gray, something to separate it from the pile, or maybe put some of the headings in a color, for example. Okay, one of the things that I just want to quickly talk about here is the resume versus the CV. And yes, there is actually a difference. In Australia, we tend to interchange these two terms really to mean a CV, but a CV and a resume is actually different. A resume is a 1-page document typically, and it's usually a snapshot of your career. It doesn't go into the details. Certain countries like the USA tend to have a resume as a standard. In Australia, for example, we use the more traditional curriculum vitae, the story of you, in other words, your professional story, and that needs detail. Now, I'm often asked, how long should a CV be? And there is no 100% right way that a CV should be. But I find in terms of attention span, and this is just kind of my own belief system around this, 3 pages, maybe at a stretch, 4 pages, okay? I wouldn't really go more than that because people, unless of course, maybe that's where your contact details and your referees are. But 3 pages I find is kind of like the sweet spot where you don't lose people's attention. What happens though, if your CV doesn't fit on 3 or 4 pages, maybe because you have a long, illustrious career that spans 20 years and maybe plus years and you've got more jobs. What you can do in this particular portion is really spend the bulk of the description in your most recent roles and maybe use less information on the roles previous. Another thing that you can do is maybe go up to say 10, 15 years on your CV. And I've seen other people who are worried about being discriminated against for age, say something like details of previous employment or prior employment available on request. And that's another technique that you can use so you don't have to go into lots and lots of pages. Where are we at? Cool. Okay, so Olga's going to take over for the last part and going to talk really about application tracking systems, ATS.
Thank you, Jonathan. Right, very interesting points that you covered. And in terms of the length of the CV, I just want to add a few things. We need to remember how the consumption of the information has changed recently. Yeah, people have attention of a neurotic butterfly. Let's be honest. They want information immediately in their face, big, loud, very clear. So we can't really expect from people who the recruiter or hiring manager who is just scrolling Facebook with like 3 scrolls in 1 second, that then they would see it, pour them a cup of tea and read your 15 pages CV or 8 pages CV. Yeah. So we need to make sure that your CV, yes, it does contain all the important information, but my rule of thumb would be don't go beyond the last 10 years, yeah, or make it really very, kind of quick and concise. And with the summary section and with the about section, it usually takes maybe 1/3 of the page. Yeah, so 1/3 of the page and then page for each 5 years. And if you have important experience that happened before this 10 years, then you have to be really very brief about it. Yeah, and another important thing, the storytelling technique. So people, when they read your CVs, when they interview for jobs, the only one burning question that they have is like, can this person solve our problems? Yeah, so it's a very company problem-centric exercise in a way. Yeah, so and when we come back to the description of the of what you did for a particular employer, we need to remember that we might want to stick to whether STAR or CAR methodology: situation, task, actions, results, or challenge, actions, results. So situation or context: your employer, the industry, the scale of operations. Yeah, what you did there is your task. Yeah, and then you go down to the main challenges, your actions, and the results that you brought. Yeah, so that's how you build a story that is convincing and that might relate to the current problems or challenges that your potential employer might be experiencing. Now, talking about ATS, yeah, applicant tracking systems. I'm sure you heard a lot of myth about ATS and all these robots and artificial intelligence, and recruiters don't read CVs. They just, kind of sip cocktails in hammocks, and the robots do all the jobs. That's not true. And the problem is that this screening and recruitment process is so sometimes mysterious, yeah, and it's not transparent at all. So that's why people come up with all these myths about severe automation and artificial intelligence, that like robots eating my CVs. And I'm here to debunk this myth. And what I'm going to talk about is that, first of all, there are no standards for CV writing. Yes, there's general guidance, yeah, but there's a chance if I get 100 different CVs, they will all look different. So there's no one form. Second, there are no standards for parsing CVs in a system, which means that each piece of tech, each applicant tracking system would have its limitations, and these limitations might be different for different types of CVs. So you see, it's kind of multidimensional now. And third, recruiters know about it. And good recruiters, they do read your CVs. They might scan them first to find out whether they need to invest more time into reading it, but then eventually they read CVs. Because contrary to popular belief, they get paid not for rejecting people, they get paid for hiring people, for placing people. And recruiters don't rely on artificial intelligence or candidates ranking, against the job description 100%. They just don't do it. They go and they check and they read people's CVs. So, and one important thing, when you apply to a company through their website, in many companies, hiring managers, they have access to the job rec. Yeah, which means that the open role is called job rec or rec. Yeah, and there is a number of applicants, there are people who apply to these roles. So it's not only a recruiter who's looking into CVs, there are also hiring managers who are looking in there. So finally, to finalize, recruiters still search for candidates in databases using good old keywords. So here's that, yeah, Boolean strings, keywords, not communication, not go-getter, but business processes, methodologies, technologies, possibly education, possibly certification. Yeah, so they are nouns, they're industry terms, they're something which is related particularly to this role. If you don't want the system to overlook your application, you need to be precise about your location, about your contact information, and your skills. Yeah. So when the system parses your CV, which means that the system takes your CV, it analyzes it, and decides which bit of information which would go where. Yeah. So you need to be very precise with it. For example, if you're looking for a job across Australia, yeah, and some people think that, oh, I'm not going to put my state and where I live because that would diminish my chances. No, that's not true. If I'm looking for a person, being in Melbourne, I'm looking for a person, for example, for Brisbane, yeah, I would start with looking for people in Brisbane, you know, and put Brisbane as a keyword. If you put just Australia, the system will overlook your CV. So you need, if you're looking elsewhere, just let us know in a cover letter, or you can write in the CV that you're open to relocate, but you need to identify where you are at the moment. Don't put more than one phone number. I had a candidate from India who put his Indian phone number in the system because you never know what's going to be parsed. And it happened that way, that the only Indian number was actually shown in the system. Yeah. And the guy couldn't find a job, though he was highly qualified. Yeah. Why? Because the system didn't parse his Australian number, though he was in Australia. Here you go. Get rid of any fancy graphs, tables. They don't save space. You know, just simple tabulation is more than enough to make your CV look neat. Yeah, and don't put any important information in header or footer. Yeah, because the system might not read it through. So you have to use the keywords from the job descriptions, and ideally you would have a job description library. Yeah, and you know your keywords, but then again, don't overdo. And I know that some career coaches or CV writers suggest putting the keywords in white font, and it's a big, big, big no-no. You know, it's not gonna help your SEO. It's not gonna help anything, because guess what? The decision of whether to contact you or not is made by a human being still. Yeah, so you need to keep it in mind. Yeah, so clearly identify major information blocks, profile or about myself, summary of skills, experience, education, and off you go. And then all the robots, all the bots will love you. Okay, so that's me for the time being. What we're going to talk about next.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Whew, we've gone like a whirlwind here, and I can't believe the time already. We're going to hang around for a little bit longer and just answer any questions that you may have. Happy to do that. But just talk about next week's session, and we'll advertise it, and we'll send you, keep a lookout on LinkedIn. If you're not connected to Olga and I on LinkedIn yet, make sure you look us up. Okay. So next week, what we're going to do, we've got an awesome show. We're going to be talking about job seeking strategies. We're going to put those under the microscope to help you set yourself up for a successful job hunt, including getting your mindset right. And I'm also going to show you, and so will Olga, is we're going to teach you some techniques of how to tap into that hidden job market as well. So keep an eye out for next week's episode. I'm not sure if it's going to be on Thursday or Friday yet. We still got to figure that out. One of those 2 days, depending on our schedule. But yeah, thanks very much. Look, as I said at the beginning, your CV is technically your own personal sales brochure. You cannot effectively sell yourself on paper unless, of course, you figure out what it is you are exactly selling. And if this is something that you're struggling with, if this is something that you don't have clarity in terms of who you are, what you do, what your core strengths and skills are, and what makes you valuable, then you need to get in contact with Olga and I. We both run personal branding programs and packages that is there to really help you figure that out so that you can put it into a really compelling story about you, as well as strategically and consciously design the career that you want. Thank you very much, everybody. Loved having you here today. What we're going to do is we're going to open it up. If anybody wants to ask any questions, that was great. You can either put it in the chat window, or and one of us will jump in now, or just feel free to unmute your your mic and your camera. We'd love to see your face as well. As I said, show off that COVID hairstyle if you're from Melbourne, and yeah, let us know any questions you have regarding CVs. Go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's curious. Just this week, I was running the survey, poll on LinkedIn, asking people whether they are satisfied or not really satisfied with their CVs. And just let me see, I think around 90 people responded. Yeah, exactly 90 people. And yeah, more than 70% are not happy with their CVs. They were too long or too patchy or too boring. So I was just wondering if anyone else is encountering these problems. And I appreciate that how CV can get patchy. You started your CV most probably, writing a CV or using your CV like 10 or 15 years ago, and then you just add new stuff without maybe sometimes reviewing the old stuff. And then it becomes really long, not terribly consistent, and maybe not exactly entertaining or convincing.
Cool. Anybody want to ask a question?
I have one?
Go for it.
Yes. So for the restructure process, we have, the expression of interest process. We can apply for 3 different jobs.
Yes.
But we can only submit 1 CV.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. So you were talking about tailoring your CV for the job, which makes total sense to me. But how can you do that for 3 different?
How different are these jobs?
I guess they're centered around communications and project management, but one is more business related than the other.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure there will be skills that are overlapping, and it's, whether it's transferable skills or, let's say, hardcore skills. And it might be a good idea to highlight these skills. But then, it all depends on how related or how different are these 3 jobs.
Are you allowed to submit a cover letter?
Yes, you can submit
okay.
a
cover letter is a great tool.
So in your cover letter, then, that is where you can differentiate. Yes, you can have your core sets of skills in there and that core CV, but your cover letter is an awesome opportunity then to, and we're going to cover cover letters actually next week as part of the job seeking strategies. The cover letter there is really designed to build the bridge between your CV and the job description. And that's why you tailor that cover letter to pick out the essential parts of what that specific job is asking for and highlighting it. So if you can do 1 CV for 3 jobs, that means you actually have 3 different cover letters that you can capitalize on.
Yeah, and my suggestion would be really do your best to respond to a question why. So it's going to be like, why you, and why is this job? Yeah, cover letter, at times cover letter is much more difficult to write than a good CV.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, Fiona, -6 pages. We have great tips today.
No.
Excellent. Fiona, I'll be happy to, was it myself or Jonathan will be happy to look at your CV and come with suggestions. References, it's a good point, Georgia. If you send your CV to a recruitment agency, I would take out references. That's for sure. Yeah, because you don't want recruiters to do business development with these people. That might really spoil your relationships with them. And references available on request. Well, for me, it's kind of something obvious. It's like you don't call your CV because I can see that it's not marriage certificate, and you don't write key responsibilities when you are going to, outline your responsibilities, because it's common sense. That's it. So I don't think that reference available on request it's really necessary.
Totally agree.
What do you think, Jonathan?
I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, it's a wasted space. It's a given that if I'm going to ask for your that hey, if the recruiter wants, they'll ask for it when the time is right. However, if you do have space and you've got people ready to go who are willing to bat for you, in other words, your references. This is another major CV thing, especially when it comes to job seeking strategies. If you've got space and you can put your references on, do that. But make sure that you've primed your references beforehand, that you've spoken to them and that you've said, hey, can I use you as a reference? To me, if someone had a reference on their CV, it also, if there's space, it also says, hey, this is me, this is how good I am. And these are the people who are willing to vouch for me. And it tells me that you're serious about the job. However, let's say that you have a 4-page CV, you're getting to the end, and maybe if you put your references on, it's going to flick it to the 5th page. I really wouldn't worry about it so much. If we want the references, we'll ask for them.
Yeah, and I think it might be a good idea to ask your referees to put a good word for you on LinkedIn. Yeah, so it will be just there for everyone to see.
Right, that's right.
You mentioned earlier, ideal sweet spots 3 pages. If it's much shorter than that, is that a concern, or does it really matter?
Depends.
Oh, well, then you've got quality over quantity. If you can do that, fantastic. That's great. As long as people can read it and go, wow, I know who Steve is. I know what he does. I can see his track record. And most of all, I can see where he has made an impact on a company in his achievements. If you can get it concisely down to something like that, then that's great. That's great. 2 pages is fantastic as well. I think 1 is too short. 1 doesn't do anything for you. 5 pages is too long, but 2 to 3 pages is a nice sweet spot. Yeah.
I think that at times it's hard for people to kind of distance themselves from themselves as a product, because they have great memories of what they did, 10 or 15 years ago, and these memories are still vivid, and I have to put it in my CV. But sometimes you have to face the truth that it might not be as relevant.
That's right. Now, if you don't want to write a CV, if you just decide, I hate writing CVs, there's a way around it that you never have to use a CV again. And that is build your brand. Get known in the industry where you're the one that is sought after because they know that you can solve those problems. I was dealing with a client of mine the other day, and she doesn't need a CV. Her brand is so strong that people come to her and say, you don't even have to apply for the job. If you want it, it's yours. And that's because she's got such a presence in the market. And so she doesn't need one. So I know people who only have a CV or a 1-pager just as a formality to tick some HR officer's box. The rest of it goes, I don't need one. I'm well known. And wouldn't that be a great position to be in, where you don't have to go and apply for jobs? Those jobs apply to you and say, would you come and work for us?
Yeah.
And that means growing your brand more than anything else and getting known as being an expert in your field. And that's what I and Olga does, is helping people get to that kind of stage as well. Becoming the dominant force in their industry.
Yeah, just like Mr. Wolf, he didn't need a CV, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, you got it. Mr. Wolf, I solve problems. All right.
Right. Okay. I will need to be jumping on the call in 8 minutes. So,
hi, Olga. Hi, Jonathan. Siddhi Lakshmi here. Hi.
Olga, if you want to jump off, I'm happy to stick around for a few more minutes to answer some questions.
Yeah, I'm okay for another few minutes, but then I will be bidding my farewells.
Yes.
If there are any questions, I'm happy to respond.
Yes. So, Jonathan, you were talking about the rebranding thing, right? Like in case we want to not shift the career, actually try out something new or something different, then we don't have any key outcomes or achievements that can be mentioned in the resume, because this is the first time that we are applying for the job and we want to try that out. In that case, what do we need to do? Because, for example, in my case, I work for the procurement I'm an IT consultant, and there is the cloud thing that is coming up. So I'm doing my own preparation and I am taking certifications, but I don't have any cloud experience as such. So if there is any opening in that area, how do I cater to the achievements and outcomes part in the resume or the CV?
Look, sometimes it's such a really good question. Nice for asking it. Well done. Look, you can only demonstrate what you've done, but
Yes.
you can also overcome some of that by not by talking about it in your achievements, but more in your about me section, and the way that you can demonstrate it in your skills section. Look. There's three ways that you can, I believe if you can talk about things in this kind of way, and look, in some ways, it's just impossible to do that, to be perfectly honest. If you're going into a new technology that you've never used before, and you're going into cloud, for example, and you've got no prior experience with cloud, think about why people use the cloud. Think about how, and cloud is a lot of implementation in there, getting companies to be cloud ready, policies and procedures, deployment, all of those key things that are in cloud technologies. Where have you done something similar, maybe based on old server technology, that you understand the things, the risks, the mitigations that you have to do in order to deploy something to a larger audience? And where have you potentially done that in the past? Or manage projects where there have been transformation or deployment or anything else in there. As I said, you want to try and find as many similar parallels and going, well, it's not exactly the same, but as long as I can demonstrate capability and process of how I took something and fixed it. Now, when it comes to talking about your achievements, there's one other thing I want to say here quickly that I think is vitally important. If you want 3 triggers that are going to make a business sit up and go, wow, we need this person, there's 3 key things I think that you need in your achievements. How did you make the business money? How did you save them money? And how did you improve something that had a positive impact on the business? It could be a system, a process. It could be a workflow. It could be an automation or something that you made something better. Now, if you can plug yourself into, hey, I did this, and the ripple-on effect was the company saved $250,000, or I changed this and they acquired a new client because I gave them access to this, and that increased profits by 15%. Bam, that's a great way. And they go, oh, wow, if she did that for this company, I wonder what she can do for mine. Another thing about that you just made me highlight as well is don't put in personal achievements into your achievement section. Okay. Yeah. Because people will go, oh, that's nice, but yeah, so what? How does that help my company that you got the Feather in the Cap award for 3 years running? Or you passed your exams, whoop-de-doo, great, well done, pat in the back. So what? Okay. You want to really amplify achievements that had a definite impact on the business. And if you can tie it into those 3 things that I spoke about, that's great. Look, you're not always going to be able to do that. Okay. But yes, if you're moving into cloud, be the cloud. Like the cloud, sound like the cloud, sound like someone who works in the cloud. Yes. Put your head up in the clouds, as they say.
Yeah, I think there's one more point to make. If you are handling or you're mastering a new technology, you can somehow highlight your learning capability. You know, if you want to emphasize that it was a new thing for you and you grabbed kind of the essence of it and you started implementing it like in a shortened period of time, you know, being able to grasp the new technology and start doing something with it. Sometimes it's even more important in IT than knowing particular technology inside out. Yeah, so it's a very important skill, particularly for the IT. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Happy to connect with everyone on LinkedIn. I have to go, unfortunately, and I hope to see you next week.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking about the job search strategies and the system, the frameworks of job search that would make your job search more transparent and manageable.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for coming along to today's session. If you've got any questions, connect with us on LinkedIn and send it to us there as well. All right. Everybody, good luck in your job search. Nail them with your CV now that you've got it, and stay safe and well.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.